So, hey everybody, thanks again for coming. Once again, I'm Jesse. I'm here with Mr. Rockwell Sands, editor-in-chief at shippingschool.com. I'm going to go ahead and hit present here, and we're going to get started. So today, we're doing a crash course, basically. How can we learn how to bring our retail business that already exists? Maybe it's new, maybe it's this 20-year-old family legacy business. How do I bring this into the 21st century and get my business online and start getting online sales? And especially just given the climate of everything right now, if you're a retail business owner and you've been having to close down or limit your hours or limit your number of patrons that you can let in your business, obviously sales can be really affected by that. And launching online and getting some sales there can help recoup some of those losses. It can also open up new channels for you to get more sales than you would have even if you hadn't been affected. So no matter what, if you're a retail business right now and you don't have an online presence, starting one is a great idea. It's going to build brand equity for you. It's going to generate revenue for you. And despite how it can kind of feel sometimes, it doesn't have to be a crazy amount of work. So that's the kind of the focus today. And you might be wondering, who's giving this presentation? Who am I listening to right now? So you can see this beautiful glamour shots, as we like to call them here. This is myself. I'm on the bottom right, and we got Rockwell above me, editor-in-chief. Rocky, how about I introduce you and you can introduce me?
Sure. I just want to say you look great, Jesse. Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. If my hair was always as wavy and perfect as that, I'd be a happy person. So Rocky is the editor-in-chief of Shipping School. If you haven't already been there, shippingschool.com, it's basically a super awesome free educational resource. If you've ever had a question about shipping something, you've got a long tube that you got to ship, a piece of art, a really delicate vase, whatever it is, you want to ship internationally, you don't know how, Shipping School makes all of that stuff really digestible and understandable with super simple guides that have been written for shippers, by shippers, for shippers. It's just there to be an extra resource for you as a business owner or even as a consumer, honestly, to know what you're doing when it comes to shipping, because there's nothing kind of more scary than shipping something expensive in the mail and not knowing if it's going to get there. So that's shippingschool.com. I really suggest you go to it, open it right now in a new tab, bookmark it, join the Facebook group. It's just a good place to collaborate and get your questions answered, and just kind of work with other business owners on kind of a confusing part of business, which can be shipping. Let me know if I missed anything there, Rocky.
No, and I just want to reiterate that, we're here for you. We're here for small business owners just getting started who maybe don't know how to ship or ship correctly, as we always say. The thing is, Jesse, you know as well as anyone, shipping is super complicated, but we're here to make it digestible and fun. And if I can get my mom to ship a package out, I can get anybody to ship a package out. Trust me. So we're always here to help. So like he said, bookmark it, visit us. If you search anything that you're trying to ship, I guarantee we have it on the website. And if we don't, write me an email and I'll throw up a guide and get you some instructions.
Awesome. Alrighty, cool. So going over to our next slide here, this is the overview. So we're going to break this out into 4 basic pieces and a little 5th piece on growth. It's really not a webinar that's focused too much on online marketing, but I just want to touch on a couple of different things just to kind of prime your mind, kind of help you think about that stuff as you're building your website and your online retail experience. So we're going to cover launching your website, making it feel great online, making it look great, learning how to treat customers and be a great customer service person, and then of course shipping and inventory management and making sure that that's going to make sense for both your website and for your retail business, and that you have a system that is seamlessly connected so you're not running around trying to find where that inventory went or missing, connecting different customers to their different accounts or their different shipments. So making sure there's a good integration between those 2 things, I think, is really important. And the last part, like I said, is going to be a little bit on growth. Again, just as we start to get in the thick of this here, if you do have questions, please drop them into the questions section in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll start to answer those for you. All right, so step 1, let's talk about just getting online. This is kind of the more basic stuff. It can still be confusing, but there's some key things that you're going to want to do as you bring your business online for the first time. The first thing is get a custom domain. A lot of the solutions that we're going to look at today might have an option for you to have your business name .theirwebsite.com. something like, jesse.squarespace.com or something like that. While you can use that type of domain, it just doesn't look as good and doesn't look as professional, and you're almost certainly going to lose sales because of that. We want to have a website that looks professional and looks cohesive with your brand, and that's going to help you increase the amount of people that are going to be buying or converting on your website. And a custom domain is just a very easy, not crazy expensive way to add that to your steps here. If your exact domain isn't available, don't worry about it. Get something that's close to it. The main thing is now just to get the first step of getting yourself your own domain, connect that to your own email address, and make sure that you look professional online. So the second part of that is then set up an email. Most domains can quickly set up things like Google Apps. Google Apps is like $6 a month. It'll be your name at yourdomain.com. It's another great way just to kind of show a little bit more professionalism to your customers, especially when it comes to customer service and who do they reach out to if they have a question. It's very easy to set up, a lot of great guides online, doesn't need to take a lot of time, and again, just kind of adds that little bit of elevatedness to your online presence. And then, of course, you want to secure all your social media channels. This might be something that you're already doing, but making sure that you've got a Facebook page, and Instagram, Twitter. You probably don't have to go get a TikTok unless you're really good at making videos, but make sure you got your social media channels down, because in the 21st century, I mean, we want to be able to ask questions to our favorite brands and our creators and whoever it is directly to them on Instagram. I just bought a sweater the other day, actually, and I found myself direct messaging the brand on Instagram before I wrote an email, which was kind of weird for me since I usually would email first, but I think it just goes to show that we're kind of all primed, we're all on our phones. This is a really good channel to have, not only for sales, but for support, so make sure you get that as well. Once you've got that early stuff down, you've got your domain, your email, and you're ready to kind of put yourself out there, the next thing is to choose your platform. So when I talk about a platform here, it's basically your website. This is your e-commerce solution, some people might call it. It's the place where you're going to have checkout, basically. There's a couple different options. That's kind of an understatement. There are lots of different options, and we're going to go through a couple different ones. The main thing that we want to really express in this webinar today is that you want to find a platform or e-commerce solution that's going to integrate easily with your POS system. If you're already using a POS system in your retail store, which is probably pretty likely, you want that to connect directly to your website, so all of your same inventory, your prices, all of the information that you already have to put into your retail store is going to be just connected directly online. I would love to, if this is something that's confusing for you, to drop in either the chat or the question section. Like, let me know what POS system you might be using, or if you're not using one. I'd love to just kind of see if there's anything specific today, as we will have a couple that we look at, but I'd love to kind of know yours. So in this, four of the big ones that I wanted to point out was, first one is WordPress. That's a very common content management system. Another one is BigCommerce, Squarespace, Shopify. These are all names you might have heard before. Shopify is really, really popular nowadays. Squarespace has got a lot of ads out there as well. So these are all kind of bigger names. WordPress plus a plugin can generally be a really flexible and customized option, whereas things like Squarespace and Shopify might be a little bit more restricted, but they have the benefit of being this kind of fully hosted option. And when I say fully hosted, I mean that you can build your website and have your processor kind of all in one. And then you can also use those things as a POS system. So it's kind of everything you need in one solution, which is really nice. The problem with those is if you're not using those POS systems, you might have some problems with it. So again, the kind of the first thing here is to sit and ask yourself, what POS system am I using? And does that integrate with the platform that I want to sell on for my online sales? So each one of these, though, I don't want to scare you away from anything in particular. They can all be built pretty easily and pretty quickly. The main thing to keep in mind today is we want to simplify everything. If you've got the retail store right now and you don't have an online store, don't worry about making this huge website that's needlessly complex. Our goal today is, let's find a solution that works the best and the easiest and the quickest for you, so you can start getting sales again. Also, just a quick little side note, there are other things you can do as well. Things like marketplaces online, like Etsy. If you haven't considered, adding yourself to one of those, or if you think that a full website might be too difficult for you, using a marketplace like Etsy could be a nice little middle ground. So just kind of depending on how you digest the webinar today, just realize that there's other options for you as well. The downside from something like that, again, is, it's not your full brand. You're kind of sitting on someone else's website. You might kind of lose some sales by pushing people to something like Etsy versus your own website. So here are 6 really common POS systems for retail, and you might be using one of these, you might not be, and by no means is this grid here totally accurate. There's also a lot of detail that goes in this type of thing, so it's kind of simplified here. But I just basically looked at the top 6 and I looked at what level of compatibility do they have with things like Shopify and WordPress. I really should have added like BigCommerce to this as well because it integrates with tons of POS systems. But I just kind of, thought that Shopify and WordPress are 2 of the most popular. So looking at something like Shopkeep, you'll see that Shopkeep and Lightspeed both have these little squiggly lines under Shopify. Both of them can be integrated, but might require some custom development. So you could use Shopify for something like that. And then for both of those, they're fully WordPress compatible. You can basically connect them right to WooCommerce, which is a plugin with WordPress. Square, it's a very common POS system. Almost certainly needs custom development with Shopify, so I just kind of put that as a minus. For WordPress, very easy to integrate. Square also offers their own websites, so you can get a fully hosted website through Square. Again, it's going to be a little bit more limited. You can't really customize the design too much, but it is an option. Shopify POS, obviously Shopify works with that. It's even compatible with WordPress, and of course Shopify you can build your own site with. Squarespace, not really compatible with Shopify or WordPress. I couldn't find any really easy ways to do that, but again, fully hosted. So if you're using them as a POS already, or you're moving into a POS for the first time, it's a great place to make a website and to have your POS system as well. And there's Clover, which works with both Shopify and WordPress, but did not have an easy, do-it-yourself type of website builder. So there's a couple different POS systems that you may be using or might be familiar with. And kind of their level of compatibility. If you just take a quick look at this, you'll see that WordPress compatible is kind of the most common. And that's probably because WordPress is just so popular, especially with the plugin WooCommerce. There's other plugins as well, but kind of the benefit of that is that you have so many people using the same platform that almost everybody's built something for their own specific needs. It's nice because you've got a big community of people on WordPress, but again, it's a little bit technical and can be a little bit challenging compared to something like Shopify or Squarespace. So digesting your POS system a little bit, once you determine what platform works best for you, you're going to start building your website basically. And for that, you want to think about how can I replicate what I've already done in store and make it look great online. And for us, we really like to hammer the concept of you want to create an online retail experience. So just take your experience in store and try to replicate that online. And think about it in the same way that you think about your storefront. I mean, which store would you rather go into? There's 2 stores here. The one on the left and the one on the right look very different, but they're in similar types of buildings. And it really comes down to, forget about what they're selling specifically in those stores. It really comes down to that curb appeal. Curb appeal and retail appeal in your physical store is the same thing as you think about, you should think about when you think about website design and the way that a customer is going to see your website and how it's going to make them feel as a buyer. It's the same exact experience, probably the same chemicals that are being released in our brains, and you want to carry that same type of learning and lessons that you already have from your retail store, and you want to put that into your website.
Jesse, I would even venture to say that having your presence super polished online is even more important nowadays, because when you're on the internet, someone can log onto a store, and if they don't like what they see, they can easily close out the tab. If you're walking down the street and you need a shirt, you're probably going to stop in the store no matter what, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, physical retail, you have a much more captured buyer. To your point, Rocky, it's a lot easier to make that sale if they're in your store than it is to make that sale if they're on your website, because it's harder to go find 25 new options, if you're actually on the street walking around. So take those same lessons and like Rocky mentioned here, maybe even do some stuff that you've always wanted to do and make it extra nice. But it's about creating an experience. You know, your retail store online should feel cohesive with your retail store at your location. And the nice thing about that is when you're creating that cohesion around your site and your physical store, there's a lot of parallels that you can draw that you've already done. I think one of the things that I hear most from small business owners that I work with is, you know, they feel like design and development can be so taxing and so difficult, and it obviously is. I mean, you know, building a whole website isn't the easiest thing to do in the world, but nowadays we have so many good solutions that you don't have to design something totally crazy and something just, you know, over the top amazing. You can take basic things like the colors that you're using in as your paint colors in your store and use that online. The fonts that you're using on your menu or your price board or whatever it is, you can use it online. The imagery that you already have for your store that you use in advertisements or you use in your emails, if you're sending out emails, use that stuff on your online store. You want to really try to make your current customers, especially if they're not able to come in because of you know, things that we're having here, you know, coronavirus and social distancing, you want to make it seem like they can still go to that store that they're familiar with and that they love, and they can feel comfortable there. So colors, imagery, even the browsability of it, try to set up your store in a way that kind of mimics your physical store. Carry this through also to emails and customer service. Some simple things you can do is adding a little bit of color in your signature, making sure you're kind of matching the tone of your store with the tone of the emails and kind of the voice that you use for your brand. And of course on social media as well, your profile images, your posts, your promotions, all these things can really incorporate your physical store's character that you've already built for, you know, for years, and keep that character to be familiar to current customers and be really appealing to new ones. So next part, we're going to just take a look at two different sites that kind of did this, we think, well, and one that could have done better. So this first one is a nursery here in Portland. It's called Pistols. It's a really cool nursery that is just, you know, you can see on the left-hand side, that's their physical store. It's very open, it's very bright. They've got a great use of space and colors, and there's obviously a lot of great stuff that goes with selling plants, the green and the lushness of the environment. And the right-hand side, you can see their store. So you can see a lot of white space. It kind of feels like that bottom picture where there's a lot of room to kind of browse. And at the same time, they've got these elements of their retail store, the little green print in the bottom right, and of course, just the imagery and the kind of the way that they've divided their categories on the store here is very similar to the kind of the flow of their actual physical retail store, where you see your plants first. You can see then what do you need for your plants. You have some lifestyle stuff about plants, and you have some specific store things like gift cards. So the kind of the flow of the website kind of mimics the flow of the store in terms of what does my consumer need to see first and what do I want them to see next. I want my consumer to walk in, see this great promotion that we have right now on philodendrons. Great, they've got a philodendron. As they're walking towards me to the register, oh, here are our pots. Here's a good book about philodendrons, and here's a gift card as I get to the register. That same type of concept that this retail store owner is executing in store, they can do the same thing online by structuring the categories and kind of nursing the customer along to checkout. And the second one is a store that we think could have done a little bit better. Rocky, I know that this store is pretty close to you, and we just kind of felt like it could have had more character. I mean, what were your notes on this?
Well, first of all, like you said about the domain, Jesse, the domain kind of threw me off. This store name is Douglas Fir, and I just want to iterate that they have awesome stuff. I mean, this is one of the coolest storefronts I've ever been into in my neighborhood. And when I went on their website, it wasn't dedicated www.douglasfir.com. It was douglasfir.west 3rd Street or something strange, which I thought was a little odd. And the website just didn't really invite you in like Pistol's Nursery. It was very clunky. There was very small thumbnail images, kind of like the site got designed in the late 90s or early 2000s or something. And this is a really high-end retail store. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought that it was interesting that, they're in such a great area on West 3rd there that to not have a dedicated website. And then what I thought was really interesting is that I was looking at this when you had sent it to me, and I was like, what is this store? Like, what does it actually do? And it wasn't until about 60% down in the text that I see they focus entirely on menswear. And for me, I was like, well, there's a picture of what I can kind of tell says Douglas fir, but not until I actually went and looked at their social media and looked at the pictures that you sent me did I actually know what they were selling. So unlike something like pistols, where I go into this website and I can exactly see immediately plants, pots, books, gift cards. I know exactly what this place is selling. I went here and I was just kind of confused. I was like, what is this exactly? I almost thought it was some type of wood shop thing. I love the name Douglas fir, but it just didn't jump out that it, that retail experience that if I were to walk in there, I immediately know what it is. This obviously was kind of missing on the West 3rd Street site.
Especially because the name might mislead someone as well. They might walk in there thinking, hey, can I buy trees here?
Yeah, exactly. Is this a tree shop? Actually, I just realized the kind of a parallel between the two. I chose a nursery and you chose a menswear, but the menswear has a plant name. And then also too, I mean, when I look at these pictures, like it's really cool. They have so many cool wood elements in here. It's these nice wood textures and colors, these different like rich earthy tones. And of course that's missing because they don't have their own site, but it's just a cool character. It makes me feel like it's an elevated type of product, and it wasn't there. So this is a good example of what to try to avoid. You want to be clear and concise to your customers. For someone like Rocky, who's been in the store before, to go see them online, it kind of felt like it was a different experience. So that's not good to feel as a consumer. And a lot of the stuff could be remedied with just some different, simple images or some different textures or just different ways of kind of, aligning the site to what they're doing in the store in person. So when you're thinking about design, many of the same kind of retail concepts you already are using, I would suggest to kind of think through that as you design your website. So the website navigation, think of that as like your floor plan. If you've got some great products that sell the best at the front of your store or wherever your lead sales area is, that should maybe be your first category on your website. Things like a homepage banner, think of that like your principal display. What are you putting in your window right now? Try to replicate that and use it as the image on your site. Or even, I love the idea of even going and taking pictures of your retail store right now and using the actual imagery from the front of the store as the image that your customer sees as soon as they hit your website. It immediately lets people know who already shop there, they're in the right place. And for a new shopper, it's cool to kind of see this physical place. The store exists to kind of build some trust. You can plan a lot of different elements, whatever your branding might be, to kind of make it feel really nice and cozy and warm and like they're walking into a store. So a homepage banner, think of that like a principal display. And then your web design, when you're talking to people you're working with on this, those are your paint colors, your color tones, your textures. Take all those elements that you already have in your store and use that to kind of inform your design, and try to minimize the amount of repeat work that you have to do. Don't reinvent the wheel with all your design and your color tones and your fonts, et cetera, et cetera. Stick to what's working right now, and you can optimize it as you go forward. Just a little tip here too, when you're starting out, I really suggest using a theme that's going to be very simple and minimal and just easy to add simple elements to. So whether it's going to be on something like BigCommerce or Shopify or WordPress, all of those platforms, they have something called themes that you can use to build your website. And these themes are basically kind of the design and the user experience that's been kind of pre-built as like a standard build for your website. Look for ones that don't look like they're going to be very complicated for you to put together. I like the example, just to go back to pistols here, of this site because it's a pretty simple site build. I know the image is kind of small here, but if you can kind of like squint your eyes and see on the top right, there's a cart, there's a login button, there's a search button, very common features for any standard e-commerce theme. And on the left-hand side, there's categories. The categories are very straightforward. There's not a lot of big customization going on the homepage. It's a picture on the right and some text on the left. My point here is that they're not doing a big crazy video background that's changing every 6 seconds with text zooming in from both sides using this crazy text generator thing. Don't try to overextend yourself with design, and just keep it very simple. White space is always a safe thing to do, and integrating your colors, whether it's a top banner or your logo or your links, is the easiest way to kind of do what we're explaining here, which is make it simple for yourself and slowly integrate your designs and optimize it over time. Once you've got your your site kind of structured and built and branded the way you want it to be, the next thing to do is to think about how you're taking care of your customers once they get to the site and they're doing checkout. You want to take, again, the same approach that you would do in any normal retail store. I think that customer service it's one of the hardest positions, and I think it's one of the most important positions for any business, almost no matter what you're selling. Amazon didn't get to where it is today because it's had the best products. It's because it has the best service. Amazon has kind of blown up, not only because it's got the momentum that it does, but it's because you know that if you ever have an issue with an Amazon item, it's almost impossible not to get a refund or a new shipment within like a day. So that customer service experience has, I think, really kind of reinforced that you need to do the same thing online as a retail business, and that it's one of the main things that can drive not only repeat sales for you, but also sales. I mean, just the word of mouth that you get from being a great business is really, really, really powerful. And so keep that in mind. You have to instill trust to consumers. Online shopping is still kind of new for a lot of people. It's big, but it's still new for a lot of people. And you want to make it a part of your company culture, for a little bit of corporate speak, to have amazing customer service. The kind of things I like to point out are like these three things: make a commitment, make it easy, and make it fast. The commitment to me is the same thing you probably already have in retail, which to me is just promising myself that my business is always going to do what it has to do to make people happy with customer support. Customer satisfaction is always number one. Second in that, make it easy, whether it's like returns or exchanges or partial refunds or whatever it is. Make it simple for people to do that, or make sure that it was easy for them to have the information about what that was before they made the purchase. So if you're doing clothing, make sure you've got your exchange and returns policy close to either where they're adding the product to their cart, or maybe some point in checkout, or maybe it's in their confirmation email. Just make it very easy for them to understand what's going on and what they need to do to fix a problem should one unlikely come up. And then make it fast. It's really, really, really tough to compete with Amazon shipping. It's like basically impossible, but you can do it. So you want to try your best to get really savvy with shipping. That's why, I think Shipping School and some of the resources that we'll go over in next are a great option. But make it a priority for you to ship out products as quickly as possible with the best shipping carrier possible, so people can know when it's shipped, they can track it to their doorstep, and it gets there within 1 or 3 different days. And the last thing is just you need to enable yourself here too. Support doesn't need to be super hard. It doesn't need to be time intensive. There's lots of really good solutions. One of them is called Zendesk. You can use Intercom. There's tons of different tools that you can use. You can use Buffer for social media. There's of course Page Manager with Facebook. There's all these different tools now that we have that can really help you speed up your replies to customer support. On the left here, you see basically a screenshot of Zendesk. Zendesk is kind of like a skin for your email. It takes all your emails that you would normally get and it drops them onto this page that you can sort them by the content inside the email. You can sort them by the person who sent them. You can sort them by when it was sent. And it makes it very easy for you to quickly prioritize your emails and get customer replies as quickly as possible. Another awesome thing about these types of tools is you can build macros. You're probably familiar with the word macro, but in the context of like Zendesk, it's a one-click sentence that you can, if someone needs a return, you can click your return macro. It fills in the whole email for you, explains the whole process to the customer, and you don't have to type out this, 100-word policy every single time. You're also able to integrate this type of thing with your website. So when people come to your website, they can see a little chat box in the bottom right. They can start an email. You can track your data in these things. You can assign this to your team members, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of just really great tools that you can use for customer experience, and most of these things are costing around 40, 50 bucks a month. But for the time savings alone, it's definitely worth it. So I know we're covering a lot here. Just again, as a reminder, if you have any questions about this stuff, feel free to drop it in that GoToWebinar control panel on the right. Next step here is about operations and shipping. So we've got our website. We're awesome at customer service. And how can we make sure operations isn't fumbling between our retail stores and our online stores? So number one, just as a reminder, make sure your POS is integrated to your online store. You want to be sure that when you're doing this process, your inventory is being synced. That helps you know that if you're selling something online, you know to go take that off the rack in your actual physical store. The biggest thing you want to be aware of running two different retail outlets, one online and one physically, is that you don't want to have any overlap or kind of missing data, because then you're just going to have a bad time. You also want to make sure that you're using like good tools for yourself. Don't make it harder for yourself just because you start shipping nationally or internationally. It doesn't mean you have to add a whole new operation, hire someone new. There's a lot of great tools that you can use to really quickly get packages out in what we call batches. Some different shipping tools that you can use: ShipStation, a lot of apps or a lot of platforms like Shopify and Squarespace. They might even have an in-app type of postage tool that you can buy through. There's Pirate Ship, which is amazing. It's really good for batches. So if you're shipping 20, 30 things at once, you can really quickly get a batch out like that. Anything that you're using, whatever it is, make sure that you're not taking the time to go down to the post office and go buy a bunch of stuff and spend way more money than you need to and waste a bunch of time. You just don't need to do that in this day and age. And then, of course, simplify your work. I think there's a couple good ways of doing this. The first one is to make it easy for yourself, fulfillment-wise, through standardizing your packages. So don't get a bunch of different size boxes if you don't need to. Try to standardize everything in one type of box size, because with that you can more easily ship into these big batches that we're talking about. Also, when you're integrating your POS to your online store, this is a good time to remind yourself, set up stock reminders, set up the daily sales summary that gets emailed to you, make sure you're tracking your sales, and make sure you know kind of where you're at in your order fulfillment funnel. And then if you can always offer curbside pickup or will call, those types of things. That stuff is easily set up in WooCommerce and WordPress through Shopify. These different tools that we've covered, a lot of them can just give that as an option. So even if your customer doesn't want to come into the store, they can still buy online and it can just be dropped off or picked up curbside from your store. So you might be wondering kind of what is the best shipping carrier? Like, who should you use? There's a lot of different good carriers that you can use. Personally, I think USPS is the best. I use it by and large the vast majority of the time. Just as a quick little refresher here, USPS, it's definitely the best one for e-commerce packages, these small, medium weight, low weight packages, very affordable, quick delivery. UPS is good for these oversized shipments, so maybe it's a wholesale order that you're sending out, or maybe it's a really big order that someone placed online. That can be great for that. FedEx, it's kind of got these kind of niche types of parcels that they do: frozen food, prepackaged meals, like the freshly boxes and that type of thing. Some different business kind of services. But by and large, if we're talking small boxes that are, about e-commerce size, the Amazon style boxes, USPS is probably going to be the best carrier for you. And in this next slide here, we have this kind of breakdown. Of course, Rocky too here, if there's anything in this section you want to throw in, please let me know.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on that. Earlier in the presentation, you said how important it is to instill trust with your customers. And believe it or not, year after year after year, USPS ranks as the #1 favorite government organization in America. People really trust the Postal Service, and when you partner with them for your business, you're not just partnering with some no name, you're partnering with an organization that's been around since 1777, right?
Yeah.
That's the best way to instill trust.
Yeah, I think that there's just something iconic about the USPS. I mean, people trust that it's going to be delivered. I think it's a great brand to align any company with. Every startup that I've been a part of, the dozens that I've done in the last 10 years or so, the USPS has always been the best consistent partner for us. I mean, it just is. Not that UPS and FedEx aren't trustworthy, they are, but USPS just has this kind of just feeling to it that I think that when people go to get their mail, they expect to see a USPS truck. They want to see that letter carrier. That's the person they're forming their relationships with. So it's a really good idea to kind of piggyback on that trust. So just as a cost comparison, to give you a little bit more detail, if we're going to shipping like a 5-pound box, from LA to Seattle, that's basically from Rocky to me, how much would it cost to ship Monday, deliver Thursday, end of day, 2 or 3 days? It's not too bad shipping time wise. If you look at the cost here on the bottom half, you can really see the difference in just the cost between the carriers as well. So USPS for Party Meal Cubic, don't worry about memorizing all these terms, especially right now in this webinar. But Party Meal Cubic is a nice rate. It gets there relatively quickly, and you can see here it would only be $9.65 through USPS, and you're going to be buying that through a postage provider like we mentioned in the earlier slides, like ShipStation or Pirate Ship, or through the application you're using. So if you went to the store, it might cost you closer to $15. So remember, you don't want to go to the post office. UPS, on the other hand, for 3-day select, $30, almost 3 times the cost. FedEx, $31.13, and the FedEx Express Saver is $13.69, but it's going to probably take a little bit more time. I believe Rocky FedEx Express Saver probably like 4 or 5 days or something like that. So I mean, you can see here just the cost difference. USPS is going to always be the winner for anything around this size and these dimensions, especially when you consider consistent, reliable delivery time. The other thing is that when you think about the cost that you're passing on to the customer, if you're charging for shipping, obviously $10 USPS is a lot more palatable as a shopper than $31 or $30. And if you're not charging for shipping, which I think is a great marketing technique, then you don't want to be losing out $30 out of your margin for the shipment versus $10. So it's just a couple things to kind of keep in mind when you're choosing your carrier. USPS is a great option. Okay, so going into growth, as we kind of wrap this up. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on advertising, but I just want to kind of put out a couple points here, just about how to think about online growth, especially as you're kind of just getting started with sales. So keep in mind that even if you're launching your store right now to recapture the sales that you've lost because of limited hours or social distancing, you have a lot of opportunity when it comes to getting more sales now that you have a website. The basic principle here is more eyeballs you have on your website, the more sales you're going to get. A few things that you want to make sure you're doing all the time. Number one, you're going to want to optimize for search. This is the term SEO you might have heard. So it doesn't have to be super difficult. You can use plugins like Yoast or All-in-One SEO. There's a lot of different plugins, and a plugin is basically like a little upgrade for your website that you can quickly just add to your website with a click. And most of these plugins will usually tell you with like a rating tool, hey, the SEO on this page is bad, or it's good, or you need a focus keyword. And you can use those to optimize your website from day one to make sure you're getting as much organic search as possible. Organic here meaning when someone's either searching for something online and they find you through a Google search engine or something like that. That's the type of thing you want to think about when you're optimizing for search and SEO. Of course, leverage free social traffic. One of the best ways that you can get sales right now is to just start that Instagram account, start following people who you think will like your product, like, comment, just engage with the community. One of the things that I suggest doing is when you start your Instagram, go to an account or a business that you think has the same type of customer as you. So for example, let's say you're selling, healthy household goods. You're kind of like a natural food store or something. Go to the Whole Foods Instagram account and go see who follows Whole Foods and go follow those people too and go like their pictures. So you want to find the target of your audience and try to start building your online community through just kind of your time spent on social media. If you can start making money from social media, you will have won the game. And of course, generate leads and nurture them. Leads, I want you to think of leads kind of like emails. And that's really the most important detail that you need. You can get names, you can get other information from them, but basically think of leads as emails, and think of emails as the quickest way to a customer. When you're able to get in people's inboxes, it's way more reliable than paid ads. It's way more reliable than social kind of work that I was just describing. It's just, email sales can be one of the highest ROIs that you have for your business. So make sure you're grabbing emails. You can do this through pop-ups on your website. You can run giveaways. There's lots of different ways. You can put out an email sign up right in your storefront. You can grab emails right from your store. So whatever you can, start building a lead base where you can email them through different tools, and I'll mention a couple of tools in the next slide. And then of course there's Facebook, Google, and paid advertising. These can be a little bit tricky, and you don't want to go in there totally blind because it's easy to spend a lot of money. But Facebook ads, Google ads, these types of things can be really valuable for your business. I personally suggest start looking at Google ads first, because if you're able to do Google ads for both your online store, but also for your retail store, just getting your retail store up in Google searches can be really valuable for you too. And again, if someone's searching for such and such item, they see your store and you've got a nice website to go with it, that can help that sale in store because you had that nice website. So Google ads would be great for local ads, and Facebook would probably be better for big national ads or bigger things when you're planning to ship to people across the country. No matter what you sell though, the main thing is to keep in mind is to think about your audience and think about your niche. Who is shopping at your store? What makes them tick? What makes them happy? Try to understand and define that audience as you go through this. Think about what search terms they use. Think about what Instagrams they follow. Think about what would make them want to put their email into a form, and treat the customer in the way that's going to be the most likely to get them to convert for leads or for sales. So a couple just kind of free and low-cost resources for your website I want to point out. When we talk about leads and emails, MailChimp, Klaviyo, these are simple online tools where you can pull in emails and you can send bulk emails out to everybody. So let's say you were at a farmer's market one time and you get 15 people signed up on your newsletter. You can take those 15 people, pull them into MailChimp and say, hey, this is Jesse, you joined our webinar. Be sure to come and get 20% off on our sale on blouses or whatever it is. Selling blouses at a farmer's market makes a lot of sense. So that's just an example. There's lots of different tools like that. I like MailChimp and Klaviyo because they're just very simple to use. Unfortunately, MailChimp doesn't integrate with Shopify and Klaviyo does. But whatever you're using, make sure you have a good way to send mass emails to people. As you're building your website, you might also think to yourself like, hey, I just don't have any pictures. Like I just don't have a photographer. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. There's lots of free photo depositories. Unsplash, Pexels, Death to Stock Photos. These are all high quality photos that don't look like stock photos. One of the things that is probably the worst thing that you can do for website design is to use super stock looking photos with the shine blown out and it just looks really soft and weird. That usually will turn off a buyer. But if you can find nice kind of rich, real kind of artistic, more just kind of more elevated photography, that's going to probably make your website shine a little bit more, and you don't always have to spend money on those things. I use Unsplash all the time. It's a great photo depository that I suggest checking out. And then again for SEO, I mentioned Yoast and all-in-one SEO already, but whatever you're going to be doing, whatever platform, make sure you've got some type of plugin that's helping you make sure your website's going to be optimized. And then of course, be sure to use Google Analytics and Search Console. All this stuff I know is a lot of information here at the end, but again, you want to make sure that you're at least kind of touching these bases really quickly. So on day one, you're tracking the right data, you're looking at trends the right way, you're kind of just equipping yourself with that information. Even if you can't reflect on it for 6 months from now until you have time to devote to your online store, you're at least grabbing that information starting on the first day. So just as a quick overview before we get into questions, we talked about launching a website here. Remember the basics, getting that URL, getting your website or your email set up, and make sure it integrates with your POS. When you're thinking about your online retail experience, remember that you can adopt a lot from your store that you already have. For online customer service, remember it doesn't have to be super hard. You can use Zendesk, you can use other tools. Make it easy for yourself to reply to people quickly. And then when it comes to shipping and inventory, don't go to the post office, whatever you do, use a tool online where you can get postage for cheaper, you can print labels at home or at your business, and you can get packages out the door quicker. And when it comes to growth, remember that there's a lot of stuff to do, and it can be a lot of stuff to deal with online growth, but as long as you're setting up some of your key bases at the beginning, you should be set. And of course, we're here to help. This was a lot of stuff to go through in only 45 minutes. Again, if you have any questions going through this, please drop them in. I see we got a couple of questions funneling in now, but if you haven't had your question answered, whether it's, about the POS system you're using or anything about online, we'll go through them now. And if you don't get your answer today, we're here to help. Go to shippingschool.com. We got lots of free resources. Join us on Facebook. And of course, feel free to reach out to us directly. So with that said, thanks for joining, everybody. We really appreciate your time today and coming and attending our first live webinar like this. And right now we're going to go through some of these questions and see what else we can answer for you. Anything else you want to end with, Rocky? I think we got everything there.
I think we got everything. And I just want to reiterate, Jesse has been a seasoned e-commerce veteran for over 10 years. He's been doing this for so long and he's been so successful at it. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your knowledge. I know this is really daunting for a lot of people to get online, but with all the resources out there, like he just listed with Shipping School and with our emails, we're here to help, lend a helping hand.
Yeah, great. So let's get to some of these questions here. So first one is, I'm not really tech savvy, so building a website really overwhelms me. Are there any services or ways I can find people to hire to help me? This is a great question. And I think it's one that probably most people in the boat of launching their website for the first time, that's what they feel like, which is why I think some of these different platforms, I think, are something like, if you're not using a POS system, for example, Shopify can just be a lot easier. Squarespace can be a lot easier because it's like drag and drop basically these days. So it's very, very simple, but there are other ways that you can do it. For some specific resources, if you're looking for kind of quick hires here and there, something like Fiverr, you can potentially find some developers on there. They have a kind of a premium section on Fiverr where you can get people who are a little bit more vetted. I wouldn't recommend going with the cheapest developers on tools like that because you want to make sure that you're going to get a product that you can actually use. I've had a couple bad experiences with Fiverr, so it's kind of a hit or miss. But there are a lot of kind of all-in-one solutions for launching. And one of the nice things too, if you're looking at, for example, WordPress, let's say, and you find a theme that you think looks really good, and you just don't want to have to build up the whole theme, using services from where you're buying your theme are often offered at checkout. One of the places I use a lot is called Theme Forest, and Theme Forest almost every time has this little, for 150 bucks, 200 bucks, they'll go and they'll install the whole theme on your WordPress and get it to the way that you essentially want it to look based on the theme files that exist. You can get a lot of customization from that, but in terms of making it look like how you want to, just kind of from the out of the box solution, that's a really quick way of doing it. And there's also a lot of other freelance services offered. What I would suggest doing, frankly, is if you are a local business owner and you're a retail owner, go find another local business owner who offers website services and see if there's something that you can do with them. It keeps the money in your community. It kind of goes to this point of let's help other small businesses right now. But again, there's lots of available kind of online options, whether that's freelance people through services like Fiverr or even Craigslist or something like that, to be honest, to general freelance people you can find online, to the out-of-the-box solutions that you can use when you're buying your theme. So there's a couple different things. Rocky, what do you think? Do you have any suggestions in terms of any kind of places where people can go to get services or people to hire?
I was actually going to throw out Fiverr. I've had a lot of good experiences with Fiverr, and I don't think we listed it out here, but that's Fiverr, like the number 5 spelled out with 2 R's at the end of it.
Yeah. So great question. So yeah, the next one is, should my prices be different online than in my store? That's another great question. I would say no. I mean, your prices should be pretty standard, especially if you're trying to get to the people who aren't coming into your store anymore. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is, do your prices include shipping? So if, and for example, I mentioned that because often with like Amazon Prime, everything's free shipping now. So you don't want to be losing if you are keeping the same price online and you're offering free shipping, it might be like, oh, that's the time I need to increase my price. So if you're kind of seeing trends where you're getting a lot of people who are you're shipping to and it's costing you $5, $10 each time, it's just not good for your margins, then you might need to adjust your prices or even offer a slightly comped type of shipping, or maybe your shipping is consistently costing around $5.65, but you just offer people flat rate priority mail shipping for $5 or $5.50 or something, and you eat some prices sometimes, and you maybe make a little bit some other times. A flat rate can be just a nice way to kind of be a middle ground for people, especially if it's only a couple bucks. But generally, I think that prices should be similar online to what you see in the store. I mean, if anything, online tends to be a place where people can get better deals because there's not the overhead of the retail store. But of course, this is to help us because we already have a retail store. So don't want to like encourage you too much to eat too many costs. But I think keeping pricing consistent is usually a good idea. Anything you want to add to that, Rocky, at all?
Yeah, I mean, one of the tricks we say in shipping school is to build your average shipping cost into your prices. And like you said, kind of give the illusion that shipping is free.
Right.
Some crazy statistic, like 4 out of 5 customers now expect free shipping because of the Amazon effect, fortunately and unfortunately. So if your package might cost $3 to send from LA to San Diego, but it might cost $7 to send from LA to New York, $5 is a good middle ground there. And like Jesse said, just price that flat fee into your products, or just say, hey, it's $5 flat shipping.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So third and last question is, what about places like eBay or Etsy? Should I use those? So I suggest using places like those, especially if you can't get your store up. If you are able to get your store live and you have your WordPress store or your Shopify store, I don't suggest it because then you're just going to be probably funneling sales away from yourself. But the thing to keep in mind is those marketplaces, they're going to have a little bit more layered fees. So when I say layered, I mean when you have an online store, just like with your POS system, you've got a transaction fee. It's a percentage, and usually plus a couple cents or something like that, 5 cents or 10 cents, depending on your POS system and your rates. With a platform like Etsy, you've got the processing fee, plus you've got listing fees, plus you're going to have their own transaction fees. So sometimes when you're using a kind of hosted kind of e-commerce type of tool, whether it's an eBay or an Etsy, you tend to be losing a little bit more on the processing than you might otherwise with your own store. The plus side is that it's a lot easier to get started. You can just really quickly put up your Etsy store, list a bunch of stuff, or your eBay, and just kind of list it, and it'll be a little bit simpler to get going. But again, I just feel like you're losing on branding. You don't have your own place. It kind of gets lost in the noise. You could be pushing customers to your Etsy store, and then they are like, oh, what's this other thing on Etsy? And they get taken away, and then they buy something else from someone else. So it's a little bit more competition that if you're trying to get window shoppers online, I would not recommend, basing your whole strategy on a marketplace like Etsy or something like that. And that really applies to like any type of marketplace type of thing. Anytime you do that, you're going to be kind of diluting yourself. And sometimes it can be worth it, but sometimes I think it's just it's just the better kind of option is to build your own site, focus on that. And as you need to expand sales, that's when you can go to look at marketplaces as kind of complementary revenue channels. So awesome. Well, that is all the questions we've had. And if there's anything else, it's just 5 o'clock right now, so we're just at the hour mark. Feel free to ask us either over email. Again, let me just pull up the slide, or leave a comment on one of our articles on Shipping School, or join us on Facebook and ask a question in the group. Again, we're here for you, and we want to make sure that your venture online isn't difficult, it's not expensive, it doesn't give you a headache. So if there's anything that we can do to help you, just feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to either direct you towards resources or guides or people who can help you more than we can. So just real quick, thanks again, Rocky and Shipping School. This has been super fun, and excited to hopefully do it again in the future sometime. Rocky, I'll leave you with the final words here.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for sharing your expertise. I really have nothing to add. You're the master. I just want to say to everybody, thank you for listening in. We know that time is of the essence, and we appreciate you giving us some of yours. I'm going to be posting this webinar. We recorded the whole thing. I'm going to be posting it on Shipping School sometime in the next 24 hours. And I will follow up with everyone who attended and registered and send them that link so you guys can have this to go back to time and time again. We're also going to be emailing this slide deck out to everybody who signed up as well. So don't think that if you missed it or you caught the tail end that you kind of missed your shot. It's here for you, and it's going to be indefinitely on the internet.
Awesome. Thanks, Rocky. And thanks everybody for coming today. Look forward to chatting with you guys on Facebook or over email.
Cool. Thanks, Jesse.
See ya.